Welcome to Democracy-ish. I am Danielle Moodie.
And I'm Wajahat.
And happy Black History Month, all. Happy Black History Month to you, Waj.
Happy Black History Month. Black authors are having their books banned.
Yes.
Black Supreme Justices who aren't even named are being smeared. Whoopi Goldberg is suspended. Black voters are losing their voting rights. But other than that, what an auspicious start to Black History Month.
It's extraordinary for the shortest month of the year, for us to be in this place, but a handful of days into Black History Month. I want to start out with the topic du jour that has been percolating on social media, Waj, and both you and I, have weighed into and have, probably similar, but also a different understanding of the controversy surrounding Whoopi Goldberg. And, I just want to provide a brief refresher for folks who either may or may not watch The View, but have now seen like hashtag Whoopi canceled, hashtag Whoopi suspended, and want to understand the context around the why. And, here it was, folks, that on The View, because of the impending ban by a Tennessee school district to no longer want to teach about the Holocaust. And again, Waj, you and I have been having these conversations, and I continually bring up the poem by Martin Niemöller, First They Came For, right? And so now, first they came for critical race theory, right? Which doesn't exist in K through 12. And now they're coming for the Holocaust. Then they went for the gays with Don't Say Gay Bill. And now they're coming for the Jewish faith. And let's not talk about the Holocaust.
And also don't forget any books by feminists or books that empower women.
And books that empower women. So in this conversation, couched in the Tennessee ban around talking about the Holocaust or teaching about the Holocaust, Whoopi Goldberg said that the Holocaust was not about race. That it was about man's inhumanity towards man, and that if we need to have an honest conversation when we're talking about race and racism, that was not part of the conversation around Nazism, Aryan Nation, blah, blah, blah. And then Whoopi was called out. Immediately called out by her co-host. And then came out, offered an apology after she received more information on exactly how we were looking at the Aryan, quote unquote, race, how the Third Reich was looking at the Aryan race, how they were looking at the Jewish race. Now, here's the problem that I have, Waj, and I want to get your thoughts, is that I believe that we have lost, or maybe we never had, the ability to have conversations, whether it be on television or in our classrooms, about difficult topics, right? There is a big distinction between a Meghan McCain, a Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Megyn Kelly, and a Whoopi Goldberg. And with this suspension by ABC, in my opinion, what they are saying is that all of these things are the same, that you can't have conversations whatsoever with regard to the Holocaust, to the Jewish faith, without facing immediate backlash that could have you essentially lose your job if you don't have the right melanin, right? Or lack thereof. And I think that that's a problem. How are you thinking about what we are seeing right now?
Yeah, so what Whoopi said was problematic, and the response by ABC News is problematic. But the difference is that what Whoopi said was corrected. And you could tell just from her own behavior and the fact that she used her own comments as a teachable moment, that she was apologetic and she was open to listening, and she said, oh, okay, good. And they did reuse it as a teachable moment, right? You compare that to literally the right wing all of a sudden complaining about anti-Semitism as they promote anti-Semitism. as they promote the replacement theory, as they promote Paul Gosar, who, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is an Arizona congressman who voluntarily was a keynote speaker at Nick Fuentes' rally. Nick Fuentes, one of the leading anti-Semites and young white nationalists, right? So you're literally seeing the right-wing movement and the GOP promote anti-Semitism, weaponize anti-Semitism to hit Muslims, oftentimes black people, and liberals over Israel, but they really don't care about Jews that much. And you see how mainstream institutions always cater to the bad faith actions and complaints of a right-wing minority.
Yep.
And you saw this happening with Whoopi, right? So a social media campaign starts, and they always whine and complain and talk about victimhood, and then they talk about Joe Rogan and how they're the martyrs, and then ABC flinches and then suspends Whoopi Goldberg for 2 weeks. And Jews are like, what? We didn't ask you to suspend her. Like right-wing Jews, center Jews, left Jews, most of them, nobody asked to suspend her. They were offended by it. And they were like, why did she say this? They were hurt by it. But then it did become a teachable moment where you're like, okay, Jews see themselves as a people. There's a peoplehood. You don't have to necessarily be religious. You can be even an atheist Jew, but you still are seen and were persecuted and targeted historically as a Jew, right? So this is why people took offense. So you took that teachable moment and instead you catered to the bad faith actions and complaints of the right wing. You do a both sides false equivalence, like you mentioned. Whoopi Goldberg is not the same as Marjorie Taylor Greene. Mainstream institutions that represent the majority again cave to the bad faith actions of the minority that are against vaccines and against masks, and all of us are hijacked because of their pro-death, weaponized, radicalized identity movement. And also, I want to say this, and this is why I'm concerned also. Let's be real. There are tensions within Jewish and black communities, Jewish and Muslim communities. Anti-Semitism is real, ladies and gentlemen. It has been ongoing, oldest bigotry in the world. These tensions between Jews and blacks also exists. By literally canceling or suspending Whoopi Goldberg over this, it actually in a strange way fuels anti-Semitism and the conspiracy theories. Because I'm telling you the conversation that people aren't having openly, but they're having on WhatsApps. See, those powerful Jews crushed Whoopi. See, you can't say anything. You can suppress votes. You can do this. You can go against black people, but the Jews are powerful. No one's saying this publicly. I'm telling you, these are the conversations that seep through, right? And in a way, that's why you have Jews saying, why are you overcorrecting and over punishing when all we asked for was a conversation?
And that is the thing. It is exactly what you just said, an overcorrection, right? And then this grand lumping in of a Whoopi Goldberg with really bad faith, intentionally misinformed, right?
Anti-Semites.
And it's like, and I said this, if you don't actually know who the real villains are, who the real evil is, how are you supposed to fight that? Right? And then what we have set up, because not only are you fueling, right, potentially more anti-Semitism with this overcorrection, as you stated, but also you have just given fuel to the desire of the right wing to ban discussions altogether. Yeah. And you have just, by making Whoopi into this villain, have essentially signaled to every single teacher, right, who is now already operating on the defensive in these right-wing states that are saying that you can't teach, you can't discuss, that look what happened to her. She's rich and powerful and has a TV show. What's going to happen to me if I try and foster critical thinking and questioning in my own classroom about these really tough, horrific episodes in our world history, right? So again, I think that you're right in the fact that what the quiet part that isn't being said is that folks now can think and resume their bigotry in thinking, oh, look how powerful this group is, right? And that's exactly what they don't need, any quote unquote special rights. They don't need,
even though anti-Semitism is on the rise, even though there's Nazis marching, even though there was a freaking hostage crisis in Texas just a few weeks ago, but exactly, what people then say is they get defensive and they say, oh, everything is anti-Semitic. Oh, I can't say anything. Oh, look, there's special privileges for that group. And then you have the deep state conspiracy, ladies and gentlemen, a national security threat promoted by the right wing that says that me and Danielle are invaders being funded by the powerful Jews, George Soros, to replace Western white civilization. I thought it was just a cluster F across the board.
Yeah,
it's bad for everyone.
I honestly, I believe that it's bad for everyone, but I have to go back to saying that I believe it's bad for our discourse. We do not know. We've lost the art of conversation, and we've lost the ability to understand when there is an opportunity to expand people's thought and call them in to community as opposed to exiling them and calling them out. And when those lines are blurred and you allow these right-wing bad actors, right, to be able to create this echo chamber of pointing fingers and signaling out and creating this increased tension between two very distinctly, differently marginalized communities, right? They get to win.
That's right. Divide and conquer.
Because why we're at each other's throats, you know, saying what and playing the oppression Olympics, which they have orchestrated.
Right.
Right.
They're the referee.
They're the referee and you know what I'm saying? So it is really problematic. And what pisses me off is that I offered on Twitter, I said, I really want to understand this, right? And I don't want to be ratioed, as nobody wants to be ratioed on Twitter. But I'm like, you
don't wake up every day and say, I want to be ratioed and hated on. I want to be
ratioed and hated, and called an anti-Semite. But I said, I really want to understand why this was considered so egregious, right? And yet, again, things that have been said that are a lot more dark and a lot more cruel by varied people that have come on The View, nothing happens to them.
Meghan
right?
McCain? Are you talking about Meghan McCain?
I am talking about the one and only Meghan McCain, who recently left The View, but before she left, for her years on that show, has said some of the most harebrained racist things that I've ever heard. And it's just been, oh, well, she's a Republican, so she gets to do that. She's a white lady, so she gets to do that.
Well, Danielle, there you go. See, this is where you've hit the nail on the head, right? It's the affirmative action for conservatives. I've said this before, is that in the media ecosystem and even in our right-wing ecosystem, excuse me, our tech ecosystem, right? You see us bending over backwards, trying to find the quote-unquote moderate conservative, which rarely exist. And the rules are different for them because they're so increasingly radicalized and extreme and believe in conspiracy theories. Just notice CNN, MSNBC, ABC News, just go down the list. They are allowed to say the nuttiest things that you and me would never, ever, ever be able to say. If you and me, God forbid, said that, it's over. Our careers are over. But because they represent conservatives and we do both sides and they represent forgotten America, and because it's the Republican Party, you know, the mainstream keeps literally catering to the bad faith actions of this extremist minority, we have to tolerate it. Like, how many panels have you and I been on where we're having like a civil conversation about a topic? Yes, there's disagreements, but then they put on a right-winger on the panel. The entire panel gets derailed. And then the host has to spend the next 5 precious minutes of airtime, like literally combating that disinformation. That used to happen to me all the time on CNN. I'm like, why am I doing this, right? And so there's this compulsion that the mainstream institutions and the majority in this country have, that if we just cede ground to them, if we give them a column space, if we make them a commentator, if we bring them on Facebook, maybe they'll be normal. Maybe they'll treat us well. Maybe they'll be happy. And then what we've seen is they're like, nope, we're just going to take power, and civility for us and cruelty for you. Law and order when we want it, and if not, a coup. A democracy if it's convenient, and if not, authoritarianism. It's like, right, we still don't see it. Like, they're not playing by the rules. It's Lucy and Charlie Brown. And I see this happening with the Whoopi Goldberg case. And again, I think for people who are listening, we want to be very clear. What she said was wrong. Yeah. She was rightfully condemned. She was rightfully called out by people. It was hurtful. You have to understand this. Anti-Semitism is real. These communities are under attack. But the response to it by ABC is a reflection of the problem that we are talking about. It's an institutional American response to catering to the bad faith actions of a weaponized, radicalized minority, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is fueling anti-Semitism in America and the normalization of white nationalism.